afternoon, Greg. Nice to see you. We haven't spoken in a while, and I'm excluding the few hours we chatted in the morning today.
It's great to see you again.
Wonderful. So for our viewers, people who have not seen us together online, Greg Tucker is our Chief Journey Mapper, leads a lot of our journey projects. And he is also someone that I've learned a lot from when it comes to better understanding customers and customer journeys. But I'll turn to you, Greg, if you want to introduce yourself better than what I did.
Yeah, sure. Well, I have been doing this a while. So I first started doing this, 20 years ago, and I was at AAA, and we wanted to, create a member journey that was memorable and it would drive, a better loyalty as well as better word of mouth. And, AAA has a proud history of doing that. And we worked really hard to do it, but we saw some early successes. We were designing customer journeys before the whole world started learning what customer journeys were. And then I was a chief marketing officer for a company where we did it, but we had to monetize it. And so we ended up, monetizing it. We submitted for award. The CXPA gave us a award for innovation for delivering the $100 million customer journey. And then we were off to the races, and we've been working together trying to, creating $100 million journeys for a lot of different companies.
Wonderful, wonderful, Greg. And, you and I are both passionate about customer journeys and the enormous benefits that it provides to any organization that does it correctly. This interview or this webinar, we want to be more focused on the impact that or the benefits that customer journey work can get. And we will also be covering a lot about the leakages that customer journey work can help an organization identify. So I wanted our viewers to have that heads up. So Greg, you and I talk about this a lot, and this is what we advise our clients as well as, when they are designing any customer journey project, our advice to them always is to design for a specific impact. And most of our clients are able to do that. But across the course of our careers, both you and I have come across customer journeys that were maybe not designed for an impact or were not designed to uncover leakages that are often happening in a business. For our viewers that may not be familiar with the types of leakages that are going on in their customer journeys, can you please talk about the different types of leakages that are present and that we identify?
Yeah, so if you follow a customer journey from kind of beginning to end with a company, and it doesn't matter whether it's B2C or B2B. Actually, we find the same type of leakages in both cases. But if you just follow the customer through the journey, you find some leakage in awareness, which is they're not messaging right to actually capture people. They've got something great to say, but they're not messaging effectively to get to that, to get awareness up. The second thing, or they're not utilizing social media or leveraging their word of mouth. The second part is consideration. So we see leakage at consideration a lot, which is I've seen what you've got, but I'm still not going to consider you because it's the messaging and the way it's positioned isn't resonating with them. Or in many cases, people are missing a touch point. That's really critical, or they're not comparing in the right place. And then at the decision time, there are different factors, and that's typically, I call it in the aisle or at the product or packaging level, but there's a variety of factors at selection time. But leakages happen well after that as well. They happen in support, whether it's B2B support or B2C support, which is you're doing a lousy job at it, and we see the huge difference between effective, the impact of effective support on loyalty and ineffective support on loyalty. It doesn't matter what business you're in. And then we also see leakage at retention levels, okay, when you're trying to retain people. So there's typically a retention curve. If you put 100 customers in, how many more do you have 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and 5 years later. There's a decay curve that's there. What we see is when you get a great experience, you're hanging on to them longer, you're getting more money. We see leakage at cross-sell, how much different accounts are buying, customers are buying, number of products they have. We see leakage at every stage of the game. And so, if you're not setting up your vision for your customer journey to identify those, then you're missing out on an opportunity. It's really that simple. We see it up and down the line. We see it B2C and B2B as well. They're very different, and we see all the same leakage as well.
That's great, Greg. Thank you for illustrating that. So if I was to summarize it, we're basically talking about prospect leakages, we're talking about sales leakages, and
Right.
we're talking about customer and retention leakages, right?
Exactly.
Now, from your viewpoint in the work that you've done across the board and the work that we've done together across the board, what is your sense of why are these leakages even happening in the first place?
Yeah, so it's a puzzle, isn't it? Because no one ever designed it to say, look, I want to throw, $1 million of opportunity out there, but I only want to get half of that. Okay, they want to get all of that and more. And,
Right.
and by the way, the reason we use leakages is we used to call them opportunities, and no one got really jazzed about the word opportunity. It felt a little too soft. But then I tried leakage, and people got spitting mad, and they wanted to do something about it. And the answer is, okay, so we're going to call it leakage. And so when people design a great experience, a brand experience for customers, they're designing it just right. Okay, but it doesn't get executed that way. It got designed at the very beginning, and then over the course of time, changes are made. Changes in people, changes in policies, changes in systems, changes in products, changes in competitive, comparisons, changes in channels. Okay, changes of the pandemic. Everything changes. Okay, so even when you design it right, it doesn't get executed. So people design it for, hey, we want to have this touch point do that, and this touch point do that. And then somebody runs out and does something different. And then it doesn't get executed. So I think there's that. And the other part is that even at the employee level, employees are kind of directed in different cases. One fast casual restaurant, they want to design for a great service experience. But the employees on a store level were told to focus on other factors that actually help them improve their bottom line at the expense of customer loyalty. And as a result, they gave a worse service, and they lost a lot of sales and loyalty through the course of it. And that didn't help their economics, but they were just short-sighted. So you can see it. It's not out of blindness. Is that it's out of, you got to really focus and pay attention to delivering an on-brand experience at every stage.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, a reason why some of these leakages occur or they are not detected is also simply a function of, just changes, like Greg said, that have happened over time. Or it's also a function of, what we believe, what you don't know is something that you don't know, right? And a lot of times in the journey work that we do with our clients, often we see that the intent is to understand the customer journey, but that's really where the intent sort of stops, which is, well, let's just better understand what they're doing. Well, that's good, but it's like, well, what do you want to do with that understanding? What is the impact you want to have? I mean, if the impact needs to be 10x improvements in our customer experience, then the journey design needs to be for that end goal. If the impact is, well, we know that there are cost leakages happening, then let's design to identify where those leakages are. If the impact desired is, well, sales are not where they should be, prospects are getting churned out, early on in the sales cycle, well, then let's design the journey for that. So, that's just something I wanted to underline and double click on what Greg was referring to here, because journey work is so powerful, but it's like, shooting arrows, right? You need to have a target in mind and you need to aim for that. Otherwise, you're just shooting.
Well, I think, customer journey work, and I've seen it evolve over the course of time, but, I have an engineering degree, as do you, and I take, and I've got a, Six Sigma Black Belt certification as well. So there's a rigor in the way I approach things, but that's not how most customer journey mapping is done. I mean, just roll back the clock. Most customer journey mapping was done in a conference room by employees who are kind of, mapping the customer journey. Okay. If you roll back the clock 3 to 5 years, that's how 90% of customer journey maps were developed. And it's amazing that you actually developed a customer journey map without the customer. And I joke about it, but it's sad because it's still missing the key element, which is the customer side. But it was a wonderful alignment exercise, and people took pictures, and a lot of Post-it notes lost their life in the battle. And then you move to the next level. Let's assume we add some qualitative research to that. Then it feels like an ethnographic study. Let me study exactly what the customers do, and let me draw a bunch of interesting diagrams in my customer journey maps. It's interesting, there's no question, okay? But it's not going to move anyone at the VP level or higher to do anything differently without the opportunity or the value side of it. Because it's such a powerful tool, it deserves a massive investment. It will only earn a massive investment when it shows the ROI on that massive investment. And that's where the discipline of customer journey mapping needs to go. And we see it in our research, where we blend qualitative research and quantitative research to actually identify all the sources of leakage, then quantify how much we're getting. But like you said, you've got to start with the intent. You got to start with the end in mind, which is, how do we improve our business through our customer journey mapping? Not how do we develop a customer journey map just from a descriptive and insight standpoint. That's fine, but it's not enough. And it takes this powerful tool called customer journey research, and it's underselling the real power.
Great points, Greg. Thank you for bringing those up. For our viewers, again, I want to ensure that they understand the importance of what Greg was talking about earlier. You cannot and you should not try to proxy the voice of the customer. That is, even surprisingly and unfortunately till date, a lot of the journey maps that both Greg and I get to see in our practice, where we'll get to see journey maps. And that's what Greg was talking about, that we joke about. We'll see journey maps, or what are labeled as customer journey maps. They'll have very nice infographics and they'll look interesting. But often when we ask our clients on, well, how many customers did you talk to in developing this quote unquote customer journey map? The answer is, well, we didn't really talk to a customer. We spoke with John in marketing and Sally in ops and Tim in finance, and we came up with this. And our advice to them at that point is, look, this is a good process map. This is a good internal understanding of the customer map, but it's not a customer journey map. So that's an important point. But Greg, let me ask you this. For folks in the audience on the cusp of either designing a customer journey project, whether it's B2B or B2C, and they're listening to this and they're like, okay, well, let's design for an impact. Let's uncover, let's make this actionable. Let's get the ROI out. What advice would you give them on how they can make this really generate 10x return for the investment they're about to make?
Yeah. It's a great question, because I think it goes into your kind of scope and objective of what you call your customer journey research. And I'd say that the first thing is understand the business metrics. that are really going to drive the business, and and design the customer journey work to identify improvements in those. So let's just go through them. There's a awareness to conversion rate in every company. There's a first purchase to subsequent purchase. There's number of products per customer. There's a retention rate. There's a net promoter score, which has typically a direct linkage to some type of value. There's customer satisfaction scores. So there's a variety of those factors. Understand what those are, and then as the customer journey work goes on, ask what am I learning about this that's impacting each one of those metrics? Not one metric, but every single metric. And the more you ask yourself that question, the more opportunities you'll find. And the customers will tell you. If they're really happy with something, they're more likely to buy more products from them. Now, it's common sense, but what you really need to know is it's 23% more likely to buy, or that they buy 28% more products, because then you've got something to take to the senior team to say, look, I've got my customer journey research has uncovered a path towards 28% more product sales. Now, no one's not interested in 28% more product sales. So then the question is, how do we go get that? As opposed to, let me tell you what I found out in my customer journey research, which is the CFO is going to roll their eyes at this one, and half the senior staff is going to stop paying attention. But they'll all pay attention to the numbers. But start with the organization metrics, and don't think small. Okay. I mean, the other part is, well, all we need to do is find 5%. Okay. And if we find 5% improvement, that'll be enough to give us some street credibility. What if you found 50% improvement? What if you found 100% improvement? Okay. Then you've got something that's transformational. And that's what customer journey should be. It should be transformational. So set your sights high and be bold about it. But the good news is customers will tell you everything you need to know. All you have to do is ask them.
Great words of wisdom, Greg, and that's what you're known for. So thank you for sharing that. For our viewers, something that I want to also outline over here is thinking big is important, and designing for an impact is equally important. We can gloat about this now because we just fresh off the cuff of working for a very large Fortune 50 manufacturing firm. That was a project, again, led by Greg, where I'm very proud to say, we guided the client in designing for a certain impact. The impact was to save X amount in their cost leakages. The client had never seen Journey Effort make a commitment up front that this effort would result in cost leakages that we were pre-committing to. And 3 months out, the results are in. Not only did we uncover cost leakage opportunities that were 10 times the amounts that we had committed to, but the goal that we were able to uncover was really close to, I would say conservatively, 200 million in revenue opportunities with existing clients. And that was really the icing on the cake that the client had never seen coming. In full transparency, neither had we, but that's also the benefit of journey mapping as a format, as a tool, and designing, as we've always claimed, for a certain impact. Because when you design for that, then often you are pleasantly surprised with 10x, 20x, 50x times the returns you can get.
Yeah. And on that point, Nitin, it's interesting how that specific situation evolved. We were asked to find ways of saving enough money to pay for the project. Okay, and that's the type of low bar that we're actually advising against. But we accepted the offer
as a challenge.
Yeah, as a challenge. But once we started talking, I could feel that the areas of impact were: do we actually have the right amount of penetration? Okay. Do we actually have the right, share capture of new opportunities because it's a new product-driven, industry? Number three is, are we getting the right cross-sell? Okay, we got the big product portfolio. Are we getting the right cross-sell? And then the fourth piece is, are we kind of getting the like retention and share of spend over the course of time? And so as we talk to the customers about those things, they pointed us in the direction of the improvements. And they're loyal customers. We love them to death. They told us every one of those improvements. And then when we surveyed them, we actually got the quant survey, actually quantified exactly what those benefits were. So they told us what it was, where to go look. And the quant survey told us exactly how big it was. And then the internal data actually helped us, develop the baseline and benchmark. And to me, it was a perfect example of, it's just, research inquiry with a different filter and focus on it. Okay, which is, we could have just done a journey map to say, here's what people do. But people would have said, that's interesting, Greg, isn't that nice? And they would have patted me on the head and said, that's really good looking. It's a nice infographic. But, it's not $200 million. Now no one looks at the infographic, they look at the bottom line. And we're still proud of the infographic as well. So
we are. And, the joke that I had with that client was, when are you getting promoted now? And he couldn't help laughing. It's always a good feeling to know that because of our work, not only did we have a positive impact on the client organization, but also that specific head of research or insights that took a bet on us. I know both you and I take that really personally, and that's really important to us, that our clients also advance in their careers if they're taking a bet in bringing us on board. So, great discussion so far, Greg. Let me just summarize for our viewers. So we've talked about how journey work needs to be designed for impact. We've touched upon the different types of leakages that are present in different businesses, and how those leakages can be uncovered by embarking on customer journey work. We've also talked about an example where a client specifically designed for a certain impact, and then the results were literally their worth in gold in the investment that they had made, and much more. So for a client, or for our clients, I know we bring those benefits, but for somebody out there that has not worked with us and they are in the middle of either planning a project or they've already set forth on their journey in better understanding their customers, and they're now looking at the results, in terms of getting those insights activated,
right,
what would you recommend to them after they've put in the time and investment, they've got the results in, and what tips or best practices would you share with them on how they can activate the insights and get the improvements made to achieve the true benefit of journey efforts?
Yeah, well, when you identify the opportunity, it's just, that's the treasure map. But there's been plenty of pirates, killing people looking for the treasure. So you still got to go out there and dig it up and get it. And I think in this case, there's, what's a successful practice is kind of designing for the activation all along the way. So an example for that same client, we worked with and ran some of the initial customer findings by some of the senior leadership along the way. So they actually said, so we agree with you that the customer identified opportunities are true opportunities, but we don't know how big they are. And then the second conversation was, here's the data we've collected from the customers and the customer surveys that actually start dimensionalizing what that opportunity is. So it's not 10%, it's really 30, can you believe it's 30%? And they go, oh, that can't be true. And the answer is, I don't see, I'll give you 25%, okay? But we'll give 30% a haircut, but it'll still be 25%. It's a lot, it's a lot more than 10% was. And so we build that commitment along the way. And I think the last piece is it needs to be believable at an actionable standpoint. And what we found in the research were there were three components. One is the voice of the customer saying, hey, here's why it's important. And they've got to believe that if they trotted it out, that the customers would behave differently. That's item one. But the customers were very clear. It's their idea in the beginning, so they were very clear on that. Number two was kind of, having the customers uncover competitive best practices. So in some of the conversation, they say, you know, who's really good at this is so-and-so. You know, who's really good at practice number two is so-and-so. They gave it up in a heartbeat. Okay, all you had to do was ask. They ended up sending me confidential information, you know, about what the others were doing so that we could benchmark it. And pretty soon we've got the execution plan given to us by customers. And it was like, I mean, it's a paint by numbers solution there. I think the last part is adding competitive benchmarking to our quant research, because when you could show that the customers, even our loyal customers, were rated as below other competition, then it actually helped create not only the case for change, but it also created not only the improvement possibility, but also a way of tracking it in the future. And I think that's the important part, is when you activate it, you got to go out there and fix it. Then you've got to measure the impact of it. And I think, you know, things like brand trackers and kind of the annual voice of the customer surveys need to be enhanced to be able to kind of, you know, build in the value components and the customer journey components of what we're talking about. Because if you identified 100 million and you actually got it, then everyone's going to take credit for it. And it was never you. As I call it, success has 1,000 fathers. You remember, failure is an orphan. So if you don't get anything, then it's all on you. But if you find $100 million because the sales guys were great, the marketing guys are great, but the ability to follow up and measure it afterwards tells you exactly where it came from and gives you kind of mastery of the data and the messaging inside the company. Because, you know, hey, if you're smart, you might as well be rich on this one too.
Great points, Greg. So to summarize for our viewers, doing good journey efforts are also reliant on how well you activate those insights later on. And something that Greg said really connected with me, it's connected with a lot of our clients as well, is plan for those insight activations along the way. Continue to put in tools and techniques and trackers where you can track on that progress. Because at the end of the day, these journey maps are just treasure maps. You don't want pirates stealing the treasure. You need to get to the treasure and then bring it home. Yeah. So excellent comments, Greg. I know we're at the end of our call and our time today, but any final closing comments that you want to share with viewers, especially any of those that may be in the throes of planning right now or are looking to walk away from this this webinar with any final nuggets that you want to share that could benefit them?
Yeah, so I think, you know, if somebody's planning either some type of customer journey research or customer journey mapping exercise, or just planning for the next quarter, you know, next year, next quarter, you know, like think about the type of impact and activation upfront. Okay, and don't, you know, even if you just want to reach out and have a chat with either one of us, just, you know, raise your ambitions on what could be there, because this isn't, you know, nickel and dime stuff. This is the most powerful tool that a company has for improving their value. So this is a Maserati. Let's take it out for a spin, and, you know, and build it in along the way. It's not hard. These are practical things. In most cases, it's not even risky. Okay, it just needs a higher sense of purpose and discipline to get there. But both of those are achievable, and the payoff is, you know, the last one was 100 to 1. Okay, I think it's really 1,000 to 1. But, you know, like if I had to sell for 100 to 1 payback, then, you know, that's what we'll settle for. But I think it's higher than that. And when we benchmark this at other companies, we found that customer experience and customer journey improvements were the highest return on investment of any investment to be made. It deserves its place. Just don't, you know, give it its fair due. But if you can't figure it out, pick up the phone, give us a call, let's talk about it, and we'll give you some guidance.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Greg, for those words of wisdom. I know you have a lot of our clients waiting on you, so I won't take a lot of your time now. But thank you again. Lovely conversation as usual. And I'll see you in our 2:00 meeting today.
Okay, thanks, Dan.